state of Vermont for investments in our communities and our economy, you're in the right place. Shortly here, I will pass this over to my colleagues, members of Governor Scott's cabinet, to tell you about a variety of different programs and ways that we are trying to inject this money into your community and communities. And there are also folks that are here that have programs that aren't specifically funded through ARPA, but are programs that either grade or staff or coordinate really well with that ARPA money that you all should know about as well. So generally the way we run through these programs is the team here talks a little bit about what they have. You'll hear about programs that are related to energy efficiencies in municipalities, water, wastewater, broadband, housing, the list goes on. And then we like to turn the floor over to all of you because we want to hear from you about what's on your mind, barriers that you may be facing to try to access this money, because at the end of the day, we want to make sure that you are getting this money into the communities here in Franklin County. Before I go too much further, I do want to acknowledge we have a large group of your senators and representatives that are here. And when I say your names, if you could just raise your hand, because they're sprinkled around the room, so it would just be helpful if folks can see where you are. Senator Brock. I know I saw Senator Brock. Oh, he had to leave, okay. Senator Norris in the back. Representative LaRush in the back. Hi. Representative Hango. Representative Gregoire, right here. Representative Tooth. Good morning. Representative Flanagan. Right here. Hi. Representative Tamar in the back as well. And Representative Oliver. Did I miss anyone? Okay. I also wanted to acknowledge Catherine Dimitrick in the back, the RPC here in Franklin County, and Tim Smith. I know, I'm pretty sure saw Tim. Yes, thank you, Tim. Our RDC here in Franklin County, both great partners to us and helping us as well, again, deploying this money. So they are going to be great resources to you as well in this quest. And Michael, the town administrator, who I just met this morning. Michael, thank you for hosting us and welcoming us in Richford. It's a great place to start our day. And I'm sure that I missed something, but we'll have time to kind of come back around. I need to step out at 9:30. I'm double booked this morning, and so I'll kick this off. But Deputy Secretary Kate Brooks is here with me. Most of you probably recognize him more than me. He's from Franklin County, and so he'll facilitate once I step out for a bit. And anyway, we'll kick it off with housing with Alex Farrell.
Okay. Hi, everybody. I made a comment before. It's going to be in Franklin County this morning. Casey Toof says, oh, no, it's always going to be in Franklin County, so I guess he's right about that. So I'll touch on a couple of things. You know, the big thing that we're trying to communicate to communities right now is that we have funds to help you prepare for growth. So I'm going to touch on a couple of those first. That's the two that I want to talk to you about is bylaw modernization grants and municipal planning grants. So these, probably some of your communities, I think maybe even Richford has already received one of these, but this is basically to help you, whether it's updating zoning bylaws to make sure that your municipality is ready for growth. So I'm going to encourage folks to go for these, and this is a good way to make sure that you're maximizing the money that you're going to spend. Another program that probably a lot of folks are familiar with, the Vermont Community Development Program. This is in our department also. This is where we administer the community development block grants. So the reason I bring this up pertaining to planning is we also have planning grants. So if you have a parcel, if there's a project that you have in mind but you're not sure what to do with it, you still need feasibility studies, come to us and we can fund a planning grant. And if you can match that with some town funds, this can help you figure out what you're going to do with a parcel, or maybe it's a water system, anything like this. This can get you geared up for that project. Once you've done that planning grant, you can come back to the Vermont Community Development Program for an implementation grant. This could be accessibility for town office, town building. It could be you've partnered with a local nonprofit developer and you want to build housing. It could be an infrastructure project, and that could be up to $500,000. So moving on down, we've got what probably a lot of you are already familiar with, the state designation program. This is how you get your village or downtown designated as a designated downtown or village. A lot of the communities up here already either have a downtown or a village designation. But what we also have now is neighborhood development areas. So this is something that can go around those already existing designations, and this is a little bit more geared towards building housing. So your municipality would work with our department, we'd bring you to the downtown board, and we would help with your application to get this neighborhood development area designation. These designations are important because they can either bring in incentives in the form of downtown and village tax credits that go straight to property owners. This can help with these projects. But it also brings certain regulatory relief if you want to build housing, say, in that neighborhood development area. A certain bill made its way through the legislature this year that is going to, hopefully, if it becomes law soon here, will increase some of those regulatory reliefs to help you build housing. So the state designation programs are really important. So make sure your municipality is maximizing the use of those. Going down, I'm just going to touch on one program that's done really well, and it's not directly through a municipality. This is actually something that private property owners would apply for. And this has been really popular and successful. The Vermont Housing Improvement Program, VHIP. So what this program does is if you've got a property that has a unit or two that has fallen into disrepair and for whatever reason you can't rent it out because it's just not up to code, you can come to us, apply for a grant up to $50,000. We'll help you bring that unit back up to code. And there are certain requirements that you then offer these to folks making less than 80% of the area median income. But ultimately, this is a great tool to make sure that the resources we already have, these buildings that are here, a lot of them aging, are kept online and staying available for folks to rent to folks in the area. But also, if let's say you've got an old Victorian, a big house, you want to split it up into a few different units, same thing. You can come, you can apply through this program. So anyway, come talk to me after. I'll give you my card and I'll make sure you can reach out to us. But just as always, I'm sure everybody else will say the same thing. Just if you've got a project, you got something in mind, give us a call and we'll try to help. All right, thanks.
Good morning. Anson Tebbets with the Agency of Agriculture, Food and Markets. I want to touch upon a couple of things. One is something called, it's a Farm and Food Workers Relief Program. So this is a $600 payment that will go to frontline farmers and those that may have been working in the meat industry as well. So that is a $600 payment for those. And some of the people that would be eligible for that include those who are planting, tending, harvesting crops, packing, grading, sorting, operating farm machinery as well. It's being run out of Pennsylvania, but Vermont is eligible. It's called PASA, P-A-S-A. It's through their Sustainable Agriculture Program. I have a few pamphlets here, but you just apply online. It's not a big application. It's rolling enrollment, so I would encourage everyone to apply as soon as possible, because when the money runs out, it runs out. So it's $600, and that's going forward now. Another one is through the Northeast Dairy Business Innovation Center. It's run through the Agency of Agriculture. We have a number of programs that may be relevant for Franklin County. We have grants that go for specialized equipment, on-farm milk storage and handling, technical assistance, food safety improvements, dairy processing, innovation, expansion. And we have one right now that's open. It's about marketing and branding. These are grants to those that are working in the dairy industry, whether it's cow, sheep, or goat. We recently were at a goat dairy in Caledonia County last week. They received a marketing and branding grant a couple of years ago, and their sales have increased. They've doubled their sales because of this. They attribute it to the new refreshing of their brand, and they sell into some of the major retailers across the Northeast. So it's worth looking at this. It's called the Northeast Dairy Business Innovation Center. As soon as the state budget is finalized, I think there'll be some programs in there for agriculture, particularly in processing. We have one for meat, meat, produce, and maple that's working its way through. And we also have one from USDA, which was just announced last week. Vermont will be receiving $4.5 million to help for food systems and processing throughout Vermont. So I think with the supplement from the state legislature and the governor's budget, and with this USDA money, we're probably going to have a $7 or $8 million program that's going to work on infrastructure for agriculture. And this is all coming out of the, because of the pandemic, realizing that the food system across the United States probably should be a regional food system and not a big national one. So that program will be announced in the coming months. Be run through the Agency of Agriculture, but we're pretty excited about that. That's significant dollars to invest in our food system, whether it be in dairy, whether it be in maple, whether it be in meat, whether it be in produce, and specialty crops as well. So I'm here if anyone would like to talk more after the program. I'll be in Franklin County all day today as well. So appreciate your attention and thanks for joining us today.
You want to lead or do you want me to lead? You want me to? This is Secretary Julie Moore, Agency of Natural Resources. I guess since I have the spot at the table, I'll go ahead and give remarks though on behalf of the agency. My name is Neil Cannon. I'm the Director of the Water Investment Division for the state of Vermont. So I'm here to talk about water and sewer infrastructure, the backbone of your communities. Without it, you can't have the housing. It's critical. The American Rescue Plan Act, through the General Assembly, through the Governor's recommendations, General Assembly's appropriations, and the work of our agency are able to put about $204 million on the ground in water and sewer infrastructure throughout Vermont. And we're doing this in a variety of programs that are designed to sort of fill holes where we can't otherwise easily fund the development of water and sewer infrastructure. So I'm going to start by talking a little bit about the municipal programs that we have available, and then I'm going to speak a little bit about the other programs we have more generally available to Vermonters, a couple of partnership pieces, and then I'll close up actually speaking not about Rescue Plan Act dollars, but about the bipartisan infrastructure law investments for water and sewer, which are huge in the state of Vermont. So starting with municipalities, we've got 4 ARPA programs that have been developed to try and meet some of those difficult needs. So for example, combined sewer overflow is a situation where your sewer system might be tied together with the street runoff, the stormwater system. These can be really expensive projects to address. The ARPA dollars bring a substantial amount of funding to municipalities to help pay for that. So good example, Enosburg, we've got some dollars going to Enosburg, St. Albans as well to deal with combined sewer overflow. We've got a program designed to help build new wastewater and water infrastructure in municipalities that don't have it. The Village Water and Wastewater Initiative. This is a really exciting opportunity because in a small village, especially a designated village center, if you don't have a wastewater system, you're going to be significantly limited in what you can do. The example in Montgomery, we've got a substantial amount of money going into that community to help them finish constructing their wastewater system. Projects all over the state of Vermont that we're working on. When you have a municipal wastewater treatment system and you hook up new businesses to it, sometimes those businesses may produce what we call high strength waste. So meaning what's coming out of the plant, maybe it's a brewery, maybe it's a cheese producer, something like that, has a lot of strength in it, and it impacts the wastewater system's ability to process it. So we have a grant program that's not at all fully spent out. We have a new request for proposals on the street right now for what's called pre-treatment, which means a municipality that owns that system can work with a business to help that business put in technology to reduce the strength of what comes out of their brewery or what comes out of their dairy processing facility so that it maintains the capacity of that wastewater system. Those dollars are available right now. I think there's another $4 million available to municipalities to do that work. And then a really important program that we are still in the process of launching is for small rural municipalities whose facilities are at risk of failure for either wastewater or water, drinking water. I know of a town right close by to us that probably will be a good beneficiary of this program, but a lot of times real small water systems that are run by sets of volunteers held together with baling wire and duct tape. This is a program that will have about $8 million available for drinking water systems. What we intend to do is put that out as what's called a block grant. So a block granting organization will be able to take those dollars from the state, work very efficiently with small water systems to do expensive operation maintenance type work, or to do, you know, basic system rebuilds, replace some pipes, things like that that are necessary in order to protect public health from those drinking water systems. So those are the municipal programs. We also have programs that are more targeted to help Vermonters generally. And so one of our big programs is called the Healthy Homes Initiative, and that's split into two parts. We have funding available for manufactured home communities to make right the water, sewer, stormwater, and drainage issues that are at a lot of our manufactured home communities. And then we have another program called the Healthy Homes Onsite, which is a program for low-income Vermonters to be able to help replace their well or their septic system if that well or septic system is at failure. There's some fairly strict eligibility guidelines, but if you're a low-income Vermonter and your system is failing, you need a septic system in order to withstand the next pandemic. You need adequate water. So this is an incredible program to help do that. And let me see, there's a couple other smaller programs. The Department of Forest, Parks and Recreation is working hard on doing some street tree planting to control water runoff from municipalities, and also to provide trees for qualified census tracts, for neighborhoods and qualified census tracts, to green those neighborhoods up and get better air, get better water, get better environment, basically. Our agency works in partnership quite a bit with other agencies as well. So we work in partnership with the Agency of Ag, with the Agency of Commerce, Community Development, especially Vermont Emergency Management. You'll hear from those folks in a moment. But when folks are coming to A&R for water needs, we may work with ACCD. When people are coming to ACCD for their water needs, ACCD works with us. So we're working strategically and in partnership to try and get the best funding package we can to help the municipalities build the systems that are needed. So those are our American Rescue Plan Act programs. And I also want to focus just a moment on bipartisan infrastructure law. So that bipartisan infrastructure law puts a tremendous amount of dollars into what are called the state revolving loan funds. These are funds that the state has to loan to municipalities to make right their infrastructure, and then the municipality pays those loans back over time. The loans themselves are subsidized at very low interest. We're able to actually add subsidy to those loans, and the important part about bipartisan infrastructure law is that it requires that 49% of any loans that we make be given as loan forgiveness or subsidy or grant, whatever the mechanism is, for lower income and disadvantaged communities. So it's a really great opportunity for some of the lower income communities in Vermont to capitalize on the bipartisan infrastructure law funds. They're available for general infrastructure, but there's a targeted program for lead service line replacement. So if you have an old water system and you have individual homes that are hooked up with lead lines, we can get those out, no cost to the homeowner. And lastly, there's also a specific program around the new emerging chemicals, PFAS, P-F-A-S. So there's a number of water systems in Vermont where this contaminant has been found, and these dollars are available at 100% subsidy to help deal with those. So, Secretary, is there anything else that I should bring up that you would like to bring up? Okay. I'm around afterwards. I also want to introduce my colleague Karen Bates. Karen, if you wouldn't mind raising your hand. Karen is a watershed planner with the Water Investment Division. If you have any water infrastructure or in particular pollution control water project needs, Karen is your person to talk to. So, thank you.
Good morning. I hope everybody is enjoying the sunshine that we finally had right after a couple of weeks of rain. I love spending time in the garden, so I got to do that this weekend. And I want to say thank you to all the legislative leadership that's here today. I love to compete, and I want you to know I think that this is the greatest turnout so far on any of these tours that we've done. And I also want to thank all the community leaders for coming out today too. I know it's hard, it's a Monday morning, and I'm sure there's a lot of conflict, so we just appreciate you being here today. So my name is Jennifer Fitch. I'm the Commissioner of the Department of Buildings and General Services. We have 4 million square feet of buildings throughout the state of Vermont. That's a big number. And we have 240 state-owned buildings. And so what that means is we have buildings all the way from the late 1800s, right? Much like this building, probably, maybe it's the 1900s, all the way up to very sophisticated buildings, very modern for today. And what that means too is that not all of our buildings are as efficient as they would be if they were being built today under current energy codes. And so we started a program in around the 2012-2013 timeframe, and the goal of that program was to make our buildings more cost effective by doing energy efficiency projects, reducing our carbon emissions, and also saving, right, on our electricity bills, for example, and heating bills. It's been a phenomenal program. It's been extremely successful. And so luckily we had the opportunity last year to work with the Agency of Natural Resources as well as legislative leadership at the State House. And we created a program called Act 172, or the Municipal Energy Resilience Program. And the best part of this program is it's for municipalities. So by a raise of hands, who this morning represents a municipality in the room? All right, well hopefully I had a chance to shake your hand and meet you before you leave today. So we have this amazing $45 million program that's just for you. And I don't know if you ever get to work with Katie Buckley at the League of Cities and Towns, but she is so excited about this opportunity because again, it's geared just to the municipalities and it's an amazing program. So with this program, it has many components. The first component, but the overall goal is the same, to make your buildings energy efficient, to reduce your carbon emissions, and lower down your operational costs. So it's really a win-win-win all the way around. And the first part of this is recognizing that all of the communities are really, really busy, and you don't necessarily have a lot of resources, especially right now because there's all these federal funds coming through, and you guys are trying to scramble and say, which ones do I want to grab, and what resources do I have to move them forward? So the first part of this program is we're actually building capacity of buildings and general services by providing $2.4 million to the RPCs. Those RPCs are supposed to work directly with their member community. So I heard we have a couple of RPCs in the room today. If you're with an RPC, can you raise hands? Okay, so these are the really important people that you all need to know. So basically what's happening is we're managing the program, the RPCs are an extension of us, and then they're working directly with you. You can work directly with BGS if you'd like to, but we really prefer that you work with your RPCs because again, that's that capacity building to help you. They'll be providing technical assistance, they'll be providing some planning services, they can help you with grant applications, so they can really do a lot of work on behalf of your community. So with that, that's the first part. They've already received their first, what I like to call tranche of money, and so they're already busy off the ground. The next part of the program are $4,000 mini grants. If you haven't heard about them, they're really exciting because you can use them for a couple of different things. So they're open and available right now. You can apply anytime. It will be open. So we've reserved the money in this program. They will be open on a rolling basis. When you apply, bar is really low. We just want to know who you are. And get a sense of what you want to use it for, and then we'll provide the $4,000. So really what it's for is if you don't have an energy committee in your town, it can help build one. If you want to gather with your community members and talk more about energy resilience and energy efficiency, what does that mean to you as a homeowner, but also to you as a municipality in your operations? Or you can use it to hire someone to help you with the planning process and help you fill out those applications, help identify candidate buildings, things like that. So you can really, money's very, very flexible. Again, it's available right now. So I encourage you all to fill out an application for it. The next part of the program that we're busy getting off the ground now are energy assessments. So in order to qualify for the last tranche of money, you have to make sure that you've done an energy resilience assessment, and it needs to meet the intent of the bill. So many folks work with Efficiency Vermont around the 2012 timeframe, and they came through and they did assessments in many communities. Those will not work for this program. So my big message to you is, unless you've had an energy efficiency assessment done in the last 3 years, and it meets all the intent of the bill, which it goes far beyond a regular energy assessment, then you will need to have an assessment done in order to qualify for the big $5,000 grant that I'm about to talk about. So there are 2 levels to that energy assessment. There's a level 1, which is a walk around. Somebody will come to your community, they'll walk around your building, it will take about an hour, and it's going to be very, it'll be very qualitative. So when the report comes back, it will list the different types of energy efficiency measures you can do on a scale of high to low in terms of that payback that we're talking about and that impact on your building. The second one is a level 2 energy assessment. That one is more comprehensive, it's closer to around 4 hours, and it requires a lot of information from the community or the municipality because we need things like heating bills, electrical bills, we need things like building plans, system plans, things like that. So if you're a community that has that information, I would definitely recommend a level 2. You'll get more information out of the assessment, it'll be much more targeted and much more quantitative, so you'll get a much better sense of those payback periods and things like that. So I would do a level 2 if you can, but recognizing that it might be difficult to pull all of those bills together and all that information, we can always do a level 1 anytime, and either one of you qualifies you for the last part of the program, which is an up to $500,000 implementation grant. And so you can use that money to make either one or more of your buildings more energy efficient, which is very, very exciting. And so the assessments should be coming out, those applications, in the next couple of months. And we hope to open up the implementation grant, which is the last component of the program, late this fall, early winter. And we're really excited to bring this program to you. We have many different program partners that we're working with. So again, we're working with Efficiency Vermont, we're working with the RPCs, Vermont Leagues of Cities and Towns, and VCAN as well. So we have a lot of different partners. We've been doing our very best to get the word out. And I know the RPCs have been helping with that, so thank you so much. The last really exciting thing that I'd like to mention about this program and what makes it even better is the fact that originally these were ARPA dollars. So they came with a lot of the federal reporting requirements. It really narrowed down the scope of the bill. However, our Deputy Secretary of the Agency of Administration chose this program, thank you Doug, chose this program to be revenue loss replacement. And the greatest thing about that for you is it acts as state dollars instead of federal dollars. So what that means is your reporting requirements are a lot less, there's a lot less hurdles to access the money, and it acts as state dollars, which means you can use it for federal match. So if you take this grant, you can leverage other federal grants, which is really, really exciting. So again, we're really excited about this program. We want to bring it to you. We're partnering really well with the RPCs. Hopefully they've gotten the word out, but if not, we're here today. It's myself, Brian, so you want to wave? He is the program manager for this program as well within BGS. So please come up and ask us any questions, and we'd like to meet you. Thank you so much.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Jill Goldstein, the Commissioner, Department of Economic Development. We're a small department by state government standards. We're about 28 people. I have my colleague Abby Sherman from the Vermont Economic Progress Council. They have a very key role in all incentives, both for municipalities as well as businesses, but also a key role in administering our ARPA dollars. So I'll talk about 3 of our programs today. One is ARPA, which is the American Rescue Plan Act. The governor and the legislature agreed last year to appropriate $40 million to this program. The idea behind the program is to build out capital investment. Let's use this one-time money so that we could, in the years to come, continue to reap benefits. The eligibility requirements are you have to either be building out affordable housing, child care capability, be in an impacted industry from COVID, so that includes hospitality, education, agriculture, arts and culture, an impacted industry, or a municipality that is actually building out water and wastewater for the purpose of either housing or an economic development project. We've already approved $20 million of the $40 million. We still have money available. I would urge any of you that have questions about it to please see me or Abby afterwards. We could fund up to $1 million or 20% of project cost, the lesser of those two. And we prioritize based on readiness, leveraging of other funds, just kind of how you could bring the project to bear. The project that we've approved so far in Franklin County is at the Highgate Airport for water wastewater. So I urge you to, all this information is out on our website, acct.vermont.gov. The other program is not ARPA, but it's Brownfields. And the Brownfields program for the state funds is very, very flexible. This is general fund money. We've just been, in the final budget was $8 million, and we still have funding from prior years. What is the Brownfields money all about? Basically, all throughout the state are contaminated properties. These properties just lie kind of vacant or untouched because there's such a long lead time to get them into productive capacity. What we've developed with A&R, actually A&R is our regulating agency on brownfields, and if you're interested in bringing a property that's contaminated into higher productive use, you could enroll in a limited liability program so that your liability is not tied to the original contaminator. We work with the regional planning commissions. They have assessment funding, so you can assess quite what is the contamination and what will it take to clean it or remediate any risk from that contamination. And we've been able to fund many, many projects in brownfields. In fact, I just went to a grand opening over at the Rail Center in St. Albans last week, and that was a brownfields that lay pretty vacant and underutilized for years. So this is a very popular program. It was one that has very little controversy. Both chambers and the governor all agree that this is money put to good use in our effort to bring up valuations of property all over the state. The other program, which is a little too late for this year, but I want to bring your awareness to it, is the Northern Border Regional Commission money. And that is also money available for infrastructure to municipalities, up to $1 million. But it's also for nonprofits, up to $500,000 for economic development projects. When I say it's too late for this year, we've just invited back the people who applied through letters of intent. But each and every year, each and every year, the funding has gone up for that. That is federal money, it is not ARPA, so it doesn't have the deadlines. On the ARPA money, the deadline is the funds have to be obligated by the end of *24, and the project has to expend the funds by the end of '26. I think I'll end it there.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Kathy Delnau. I'm the State Librarian and the Commissioner of the Department of Libraries. And I'm joined today by Jeanette Schaefer, our Assistant State Librarian for Library Advancement. And I'm here to tell you about two opportunities that we have in the department for capital project funds. This is really new for us. The Department of Libraries hasn't typically been in the position to grant out funds for municipal and incorporated public libraries to improve their library buildings. So it's a really exciting opportunity for us. I'm going to start out by telling you about the first of those funds, which is ARPA funding. And that is funding through the U.S. Treasury Capital Projects Funds. And it's specifically funding for community buildings where people can utilize the internet for the purposes of work, education, and health monitoring. Now, those ARPA fundings are really a reaction to what we just experienced in our communities all across the country, but especially here in Vermont, where a lot of people don't yet have access to the internet in their homes. And you'll hear a little bit more about that soon. But I want to see a show of hands. If you have a local library that closed during the height of the COVID-19 public health emergency, did your local library close at any point during that? Because public libraries across the country weren't really well positioned with their facilities in terms of air exchange in your building, in terms of spacing, sufficient spacing in the buildings. So one of the ways that we are seeing some resiliency building in case there were ever another public health emergency, or just in recognition, some of the information that's come out in the past week about, it's a good idea to turn the air over 5 times in a facility, things of that nature that are now known that we didn't know about before. Really thinking about, even for regular annual events like people getting the flu, how can we be sure that the facility is a place where it's a safe and healthy place to be? This money from Treasury is really a response to that, so that if there were another situation where we had a public health emergency, people could continue to use the library throughout that process. So it's really an attempt to kind of bolster your local facility so that it's more resilient for these types of things. So things like HVAC replacement to increase the filtration of the air, or things that might help everybody in the community come inside. So if your public library locally isn't as accessible as it could be for people who have disabilities, that could also be something that we envision would be an acceptable use of this capital project funding, because you want everyone in the community to be able to come in, access the internet, and get online to go to school, do their working from remote locations, and also just connect with their medical health providers. You know, you want to be able to report on whatever you need to report on, and even in cases where your library might be able to build something like a Zoom room so that you could have a private conversation with your doctor from the library. This is incredibly important, especially in rural communities in Vermont that don't yet have access to high-speed internet at home. And we know that people, even if you have a line going past your home, you may not have the money to afford to connect to the internet. So the public library is still serving that really vital service for the community. So this is a fund of money that we've applied for from U.S. Department of Treasury. We're still going back and forth with them to go through the process to have approval of our project, but it's $16.4 million. And really the acceptable uses of this would be for those projects that are going to support people in accessing the internet. But we envision that would include things like, you know, if you've got a hole in the roof, that would compromise the ability of people, it compromises the integrity of the building, and eventually you might not have a public library. So we think it could be things like the building envelope, HVAC replacement, and ADA accessibility for public libraries. Again, we're still waiting for approval of that, and that's our plan, so we'll see how that works with Treasury. But that's just one of the 2 funding sources that we have available. We know at the Department of Libraries that there's a lot of need for maintenance of library facilities. Libraries in Vermont, some of them are 80 years old, some of them are 100 years old. We have a lot of older buildings, and we know that in small rural communities, you don't necessarily have funds from your tax base to support improvement of those facilities, and even sometimes basic maintenance. And so for those facilities, and there are no strings attached to it in terms of internet accessibility and kind of that use, really just we sought out through the congressionally directed spending program, and with support from Senator Leahy's office, we received approval through the omnibus bill for a $10 million capital project fund specific to small and rural libraries in Vermont, public libraries. It's for municipal and for incorporated public libraries, because in Vermont we have about half and half, a mix of half and half. And those projects can really be anything that would help your library to continue into the future, help your community continue to have access to their public library. So a lot of the same things, like if there's water infiltration, the brick needs to be repointed, the roof needs to be replaced, those projects would all be things that we envision will be eligible. And that is actually a longer horizon. We've heard already today that the ARPA money needs to be spent by December 31st, 2026. Well, this money through Housing and Urban Development that we at the department are going to be granting out, that pocket of $10 million will actually have a much longer time that we are able to spend it. So I think it needs to be obligated by the end of 2026, and actually it doesn't need to be fully spent until August 31st, 2031. When I read that in the award letter, I thought it was a typo, and I confirmed it's actually true. So that's for communities that are in earlier stages of planning and that are small and rural, this might be a good funding source to apply for and to receive grant funding through. The department's really aware, especially after going around to these various ARPA town hall type meetings in different counties, that it's tough for a small community library to apply for these grants. So what we've made as our plan is to do one grant application that we will launch in the fall of this year. We encourage people to if you have a project, apply for the funding. It's a competitive grant process. There are the 2 different buckets. You don't need to decide which one your project is eligible for. We'll ask a number of questions, and then we'll score the application using 2 separate rubrics, and we'll figure out which of the projects which of the buckets your project really fits into better. So that is our plan, to have one unified application that we'll put out to the public in the fall. We are librarians. You can tell from how much I'm talking right now. We like to communicate. Do not fear. All of the public libraries will get the message that this opportunity is out there. If you don't want every single email blast from the Department of Libraries twice a week that we usually send out to public library directors and trustees, but you are interested in learning more about these programs, we also have a separate email address that we've set up that people can just learn about the capital projects when we have something new to tell them. We did just complete a needs assessment, which is not the grant application. And I know that there are people in this room who have already filled out that needs assessment. That needs assessment will be used to build out the 2 grant programs, and it will also inform the work of the working group on the status of libraries in Vermont to try to get a handle on what's the overall need for building programs, because it's possible that these 2 pots of money for a total of $26.4 million may not be sufficient, and that would help us to just be aware of that need as a state. So again, my name's Kathy Delnow. I'll be here afterward, and then we're headed over to the library next door. So you're welcome to join us there. And later this afternoon, Jeanette Schaefer and I will be in Swanton, seeing the public library there. So anybody who's headed that way is welcome to meet us there as well. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for coming. I'm Christine Hultquist, the Executive Director of the Vermont Community Broadband Board. Our job is to get every single Vermonter connected to fiber optic broadband, make it affordable, and then maximize the positive social impact. And when I talk about maximizing positive social impact, we're talking about those folks that aren't connected today in rural Vermont. Those who are below 200% of the poverty level, those people that are struggling, are twice as many per capita as they are in the more urban areas. So this is about bringing economic opportunity to folks. And it's also training people how to use those networks and providing them devices and support as well. Other things, positive social impact would be, for example, agriculture, reducing the cost of nutrient application, nutrient runoff, and creating markets. And then, of course, all the other things you can think of that broadband do for you, such as telehealth and telemedicine, is a critical part of economic development. And if you look at where we are today, we do have enough funds to get everybody connected to Vermont. We're working on affordability, and we have a significant planning grant for the next 9 months. We're building a plan to how we maximize positive social impact. We'll be presenting it at the federal government in about 9 months. I was the CEO of Vermont Electric Co-op, and of course, back when we bought Citizens, we looked at the infrastructure up here, and at the time, economic development was electricity, water, and sewer. And so we spent a lot of investment rebuilding your electric network so that you could have economic opportunity. Unfortunately, during that time, telecommunications became that 4th more important part of economic development. When I would sit in my office, I had a picture of the first electric co-op pole that was set in Eden Mills, Vermont in 1939. And I kind of looked at that picture thinking how nice it would have been around then, because men, women, children all got together and they actually set the poles. Well, and that first pole was set in 1939. Victory, Vermont didn't get electricity until 1964. So it was a long process. But that pulling together to make something happen, I thought, wouldn't it have been exciting to be there? Well, I'm so excited to say that that's what we're doing today. We got 428 volunteers across the state working on boards to make this happen in 10 communication union districts. And of those 10 communication union districts, 6 are in construction now. One of those, by fall, will have everybody connected. So we're making tremendous progress in this area across the state. In the north here, if you go from Richford east, starting with J, that's covered by the NEK Community Broadband Network. Richford and west is covered by the Northwest Communication Union District, which is Executive Director is Sean Kyle. Unfortunately, and I am part of this and I take full responsibility. We lost about a year with Northwest because we negotiated. We had high hopes for Google Fiber. That deal fell through. But Sean Kyle and the team are working very hard. They've come to an agreement. There'll be an announcement in June that they've got a partnership and they'll have a schedule and plan available. And so that that will move fast once it gets started. What we're finding is once construction gets started, things move faster than we expected. We're ahead of schedule in terms of the overall state, but we're behind schedule here in the Northwest Communication Union District in Lemoyle because of that Google deal. So I'll be around afterwards, happy talking. I'll also be at the libraries. I found that the libraries is where we want to focus and as a community anchor institution to make sure, you know, that connectivity is there. And I also get great feedback in the library. So join us at the library too if you want to give some critical feedback about communications. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Joe Flynn. I'm the Secretary of the Agency of Transportation. So we are the DMV and VTrans. Obviously, we do construction, we do maintenance, rail trails, passenger rail, freight rail, airports. Franklin County Airport will be there this morning from 11:30 to 1 for an open house. And we also do transit through Vermont. AOT doesn't have ARPA money per se. We were not part of the ARPA program designed by Congress. We do, however, have a lot of money that if you're from municipalities, I think you're familiar with the Better Roads program. You're familiar with the grant aid program from the agency, the town highway program, town structures program. I believe as Secretary Tebbett said, once the budget is finalized, the fiscal 24 budget, the agency has just over $90 million pointed toward Vermont towns through those programs that I mentioned, not even counting the Better Roads program or municipal road grant program. So I just wanted to, I obviously want to be here with my colleagues. If you have any transportation related questions after we're done speaking, I'm here for that. And again, I would invite anyone who's interested to the airport in Highgate today from 11:30 to 1 o'clock. So thank you very much.
3 years into it, I'm still struggling getting my mask off. But still, June Tierney, Commissioner of the Department of Public Service. It's such a pleasure to be here and to see the turnout, Jen. You're right, I think this is the biggest one. You've heard so much from my accomplished colleagues out this morning. I'm going to keep it a little short because we're here to hear from you. As you've heard a lot from us and you haven't heard everything that we probably need to tell you. If I had one message I would drive home to you today, it would be, please realize we don't know what we don't know. And we know that you know stuff that we need to know in order for us to be more effective helping you who know best how these funds can help you. So let's not be shy with each other. If you remember nothing else from today, remember June Tierney at vermont.gov. Send me an email if you have a question, you just don't know who it was, or do we have anybody from the governor's office here today? John. Hey? John. John, excellent. John, stand up. Governor Scott hears from this guy all the time, and he knows how to get Governor Scott's attention. So John Zanin, right, at vermont.gov? Yes. There we go. Just reach out, please. That's one of the beauties of being in Vermont. It's a small state. We can do that here. It's a lot of money, historic money. It's a historic opportunity. If in the course of the morning you find that things bleed together from you, wait a minute, she was talking about ARPA, but he mentioned bipartisan infrastructure law, and someone over there mentioned IRA. Somebody else mentioned he's not really part of it, but he is part of it. We're not expecting you to master all of that. Just email us, just ask us. We will find a way to help you. That's all oh yeah, I do energy, telecommunications. She's the brains of the operation. You know, but anyway, I said I'd keep it short. I'm going to keep it short.
Thank you, Jim. Good morning. This is a lot to throw out people the morning after Mother's Day. My name is Ben Rose. I work for the Vermont Division of Emergency Management, where I'm the Recovery and Mitigation Section Chief. With me is a colleague, Brian McWalters, who's one of our hazard mitigation planners. And if anything I'm going to say is of interest, find us afterwards. We'll be here. So I'm our FEMA whisperer, disaster, emergency management. When bad things happen, Vermont Emergency Management is there. And let me just get a sense of how that touches you. Can you please raise your hand high if your home was flooded or damaged during Irene, Tropical Storm Irene? None, okay, that makes sense in northwestern Vermont. How many, if your town has significant damage from Irene? No, okay. How about the Halloween storm of November 2019? Yes, that was a big one here. We're still fixing multi-$100,000 culverts from that storm. How many of you lost power at home from the December 22nd through 24th, 2022 storm? Yeah, that was a big one in BEC territory up here, and Enosburg is getting FEMA money from that storm too. Well, the confluence of the state climate action plan and COVID and the ARPA money that came out of it creates a historic opportunity. $15 million of ARPA money was made available by the legislature for a program called the Flood Resilient Community Fund, which we Vermont Emergency Management, are partnering with the Agency of Natural Resources to meet all the federal eligibility rules and so forth. What this fund allows us to do is to do hazard mitigation projects that FEMA either can't do or won't do over the years. So we are solving some of the tough nuts of chronic flood vulnerability in Vermont communities. There were 5 communities chosen after Irene for a Vermont Economic Resiliency Initiative. Deep dive into the flood vulnerability of 5 communities. The 3 Bs, Barry, Brandon, and Brattleboro, Woodstock, and does anybody know what the 5th one was? Enosburg. And we haven't really done much with that yet. But there are places up here in Franklin County, think Montgomery, there are some real flood risk up here. Now is the best moment in our lifetimes to go after that and do buyouts, acquire parcels that should not be developed. There are some things we can do now that we could never do before that will set the communities up, even if precipitation increases in magnitude and intensity in the coming years. So talk to us if that sparks anything for you. That's it, thank you.
All right, we've only got about 10 minutes left, so I usually would give kind of a context overview, wrap everything up. I'm not really going to do that today. I'm going to say 2 things. We have a generational opportunity in Vermont.
Doug, why don't you introduce yourself?
Sorry, Doug Farnham, I'm trying to go fast. Doug Farnham, the Deputy Secretary for the Agency of Administration. We have a generational opportunity in Vermont. We are not going to see this level of federal funding and investment if you combine the ARPA, State Fiscal Recovery, the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, the Inflation Reduction Act. Those are likely the last major federal vehicles we're going to see for water, sewer, housing, climate investments for a good amount of time with the trends in Congress. So it's not too late. Your communities can get involved now. And then the other thing I would say is AOA is running a municipal technical assistance program. We're working with a set of pre-qualified towns first, but there is funding, and we will be posting a form soon to have every town put in a request for municipal technical assistance if they need it. Every town can apply, and then we'll work down the list and make sure we can give out as much assistance as possible. The legislature was amazing working with us in the Budget Adjustment Act. $3 million. Our primary partners on that are the regional planning commissions, so you can start working with those regional planning commissions now. And we will have that form soon we actually pretty much have the form finalized, we just need to post it. So you'll be able to put in, ask for assistance, and then hopefully later in the summer, once we've scoped out the first group of towns, we'll move on to the next group. And I know 4 towns in Franklin County are in kind of the second cohort of towns that would get assistance. And depending on our requests, we'll move down that list as quickly as we can. But we're really trying to make sure towns have the opportunity to participate in this very, very unique opportunity. If you want your community to have the infrastructure to grow and move forward safely and smartly, now is the time to make those investments. If you don't invest in the next couple of years, if you don't act now, then you'll probably have 10 or 20 years before you can see the same style of opportunity, more like 20, most likely.
All right, thank you, Doug. Thank you, panelists. Why don't we open it up for questions? If you would just stand up, identify yourself.
I'm John Bondi. I'm the chairman of the Fletcher Select Board. I have 2 questions. The first is, it's really great when FEMA shows up but they never pay their bills. Year after year goes by, and they promise us money, and we don't get the money. So I'm not a fan of FEMA at the moment. We have hundreds of thousands of dollars that the town is having to take out loans because FEMA won't do what they're supposed to do. Regarding broadband, things are much more complicated than your optimistic comments. Fletcher started doing broadband a few years ago, and we've run into a problem with cost overruns. When we went to the state to see if we could get help, they said no. And the reason we can't get help is because Consolidated Communication received a grant in 2020 from the FCC, and that grant essentially blocks us from getting funding. Our tax dollars are being used to prevent my town from getting infrastructure built. To make it worse, the FCC designated some parts of town that they refuse to fund, and those parts of town will not be overbuilt, will not be built up by Consolidated, even though they have the grant. So there are parts of town that the federal government is refusing to assist in building infrastructure. So I find this whole thing really frustrating and basically infuriating. There are a series of different bureaucratic entities that have created rules that are at odds with our getting infrastructure in the entire state. So Consolidated is required by their contract to overbuild existing fiber, and they are not allowed using that money to build where fiber doesn't exist. And this is a consequence of the FCC taking 2019 data and requiring Consolidated to use it through the end of the contract, which is the end of the 2020s. The FCC should have said, when you get to this portion of the state, if there's already fiber there, you don't have to build that fiber. Instead, the FCC has said, if there's already fiber there, you must build over it, and you cannot use the money to build where it's needed. And so we have a lot of problems here, not only at the state level, but at the federal level. And my town is very frustrated because we can't get the money to finish the project that we started.
I guess there's a few things you said that I would challenge. One is that the FCC does not tell you that you can't serve the unserved areas.
That's not what I said. What I said is they would not provide funding for this unserved area.
Yeah, it's a lot more complicated. We are working on that as we speak. There's also, we're talking to Mansfield Community Fiber. There's agreements that Fletcher has signed. There's agreements they've signed. There's the FCC. We're dealing with those all throughout the state. So it's not just a Fletcher problem. And I'm certainly not going to throw it over the wall. I'm going to take full responsibility to continue to work on this. We are continuing to work on this. We're challenging the FCC. You'll be seeing a Wall Street Journal come out the next couple of weeks where we've led the effort throughout the country in challenging the FCC. So we are taking strong action on that issue. So I haven't given up on it. I will just let you know that.
And then also, we catch up with Ben afterwards, just to understand the human aspect. Thanks, Ben. Who else? Carolyn?
Thank you, Kate. So I'm Carolyn Brannigan. I serve in the legislature and I represent the town of Georgia and also Fairfax. So I have a question for the lady from the libraries. First of all of you, thank you for coming to Franklin County. It's really good to have you all up here. Thanks. Lady from the library, I have a question. Our historical society in town owns 2 buildings. One of them is an old brick school building, a one-room school building, right in the center of town. The brick needs pointing. I think the foundation is stone and it needs to be shored up with cement. And the building is slowly deteriorating. But inside that building are tons and tons of documents going back even earlier than the Civil War.
And the building is used all summer long when it's open because there's no heat in it. Tourists come in, local people go in to do family research and research on the town. So it's used like a library. And I'm wondering if any of your building money that you spoke about could be used for the Historical Society building. It's owned by the town. Anyway, I think you understand my question.
I do. The way that both of these funds were requested, they're really specific to public libraries. So in Vermont, statute defines public libraries, and the statute defines it a little bit different from historical societies. So this may not be a perfect fit for that type of building that you're talking about, but there may be other sources of funding not administered by the department that would be a better fit for a historical society building.
Yeah, I could probably help out here too. So we've got a couple programs that could come into play to help out here. So firstly, that could be a good fit for the Vermont Community Development Program, especially if a municipality sees that as a priority and wants to come apply. That might actually be a really good fit, especially since it's municipally owned. The other one I'm going to mention that I didn't get to mention before, by the way, I don't know if I said who I am. Alex Farrell, Deputy Commissioner, Housing and Community Development. The other program I want everyone to keep in mind is what we have called the Better Places Program. So this is a really low barrier grant program. Let's say, in this case, you've got a placemaking activity, a building where people gather. You can bring that forward and you set a fundraising goal. The community sets a private fundraising goal, and we will match whatever you privately fundraise 2 to 1. So if you say, we want to raise $40,000 for repairs to this, and you hit that $40,000 goal, great, we'll come in with $80,000. And then sometimes the municipality will come in and tack on a little more. So Better Places can be a really good tool for things just like this. So.
And then we have, so if a building is municipally owned, then they can qualify for Act 172, which is up to $500,000 to make buildings more efficient. So that's also a program that can be leveraged, so long as the municipality owns the building.
But June?
Yeah, I just wanted to point out, this is a great example of what it means to say, not sure where it fits, don't know how, ask, may not have been the right fit, but you found a portal and we want that from you. And then we make the connections within the cabinet because we've been working together for a very long time. And there may be other answers, but until you ask the question, we don't know. So thank you for doing that. It's a great way to think. Georgia, I think, received something like $1 million of unrestricted ARPA funds for the municipality. I don't know how Georgia used it, but that kind of stuff is out there. Begins with you asking us, and then we will work together to help you find a fit or try to find a way to get beyond the hurdle. So yay, let's keep the morale up. I'm really sorry that we can't answer everything for you today, sir, but there are conversations we should be having that perhaps can get us past the rub. This is keep hope alive, folks. This is a good opportunity, as Doug said, and it's up to us to seize it. We need your help to do that.
And we won't let federal bureaucracy get in the way of our goals.
That's right.
Additional questions? Yes?
I'm Darlene.
You can stand up.
I'm Darlene Redwire, Executive Assistant for Northern Tier Center for Health here in Richford. Notch is a federally qualified health center across Franklin and Grand Isle counties. We have 8 medical offices, 4 pharmacies, 2 dental practices, and more recently a grocery store that was purchased with the help of Northern Borders funding. And that money, I believe, will be running out shortly. And we have what we now call the social grocery stores in Richford. And our hope would be that that would be a model for other communities. Back to what Anthony said about more regional, local food sources. We have been working really hard over the last 3 years to support local farmers, local producers, bring in more of those people into our grocery store. We're also continuing to employ the people who would have been displaced through unemployment 3 years ago. the jobs have improved from a lot of part-time jobs without benefits, more or less minimum wage jobs, to jobs underneath the health center now, so that the employees have the same benefits as health center employees. And I would like to see that progress that we've made here in Richford, I would like to see it continue, but I would also like to see it replicated in other communities. And we have that opportunity as a federally qualified health center with multiple sites. And in Richford, we have a grocery store that we can use as an incubator between the health center and the grocery store. The building that we occupy is very old. That was also renovated with grant money several.
New market tax credits, right?
Yes. There are improvements that still need to be made. And just looking for whatever advice or help that your panel can offer us. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm thinking if you should go to our site on accct.vermont.gov and link on to the Community Recovery and Revitalization. If you're located in a qualified census tract, that also opens up eligibility. That would go for also the building that Representative Brannigan just talked about.
And I'd like to introduce Kathy Benoit. She's our new executive director since January, so.
Nice to meet you.
All right, probably time for one or two more questions. Mr. Rosenquist.
Thank you, Carl Rosenquist. I'm on the select board of the town of Georgia, and we're wrestling with the issue of 3-acre stormwater issue with certain housing groups, what we call housing associations, that were formed in many cases prior to the 3-acre rule. And one of our issue right now is that the town and our town attorney in particular is obviously advising us not to sign these agreements that if we're assuming any responsibility for the town to build some of this infrastructure that may be required. The problem is which comes first, the chicken or the egg. There may be no issues with some of these associations in terms of fixing their stormwater issue. But I wonder who we should deal with to really understand this. The associations are trying to obviously put pressure on us to get this. I think a letter of intent has to be in by the 1st of June, I believe it is, to move forward on some of these improvements. And then a further question is, we have some groups that don't have a group association or whatever you call it at all. They're just housing developments with the building.
Orphans.
Excuse me?
Like orphans.
Yeah.
Orphan systems.
And so we could definitely use some guidance on how we move forward on that, because, you know, we're being advised also that it's not our responsibility to have these people come together and have an association that they haven't had before. But what sort of mechanism can we use to get that done? The 3-acre rule is upon us, and we're trying to solve it, but sometimes it seems like a mountain to move to get it going.
So, Secretary, there's a couple of different aspects to your question. So, Georgia is not under a requirement to manage the stormwater of the HOAs that are in Georgia, although there may be a benefit to those HOAs to partner with Georgia. There has for a while been available funding to assist 3-acre when the town is sponsoring that HOA. So that's one of the mechanisms we've had in place to help those help the HOAs cover the costs of doing that notice of intent, that requirement that you mentioned. Under the American Rescue Plan Act, we have a substantial amount of money that we intend to use to assist essentially all private landowners that need to comply to attract some funding from American Rescue Plan Act and from my office in order to file their notice of intent. Once that's done, the benefit there is once the HOA has gone through the steps of getting themselves permitted, we then know what it is they need to build. And then you as a town have a much better handle on what it is you may be taking on should you elect to assist. Once we get everybody through permitting, we're also reserving a substantial chunk of money, not nearly enough. 3 acre storm run is about a $260 million problem. We have about $30 million available to us to help. So we're gonna try and get everybody permitted who meets the eligibility thresholds. And then we will have dollars available for those low income HOAs to help them with construction as well. We also have, we'll be able to make available the state revolving loan funds, both for HOAs, but also if the municipality wants to come in and help the HOA, then we can bring subsidy because the SRFs allow subsidy to municipal borrowers. So I recognize there's a lot of complexity in what I just kind of said to you. However, there are some solutions out there as well. So you don't at this point need to help your HOAs. But I think, you know, looking forward to the period after permitting and until construction, that's where the opportunity would be more bright for municipalities to help. So we have funding right now. Do you want to add anything to that?
Just, if it would be helpful,
Secretary Julie Moore.
if it would be helpful, we have technical assistance available through Neil's shop as well as through our stormwater section that can come and talk to the select board and help provide an overview of kind of all the pieces Neil's talking about. Obviously, the decision rests with the select board as to how the town would or would not like to engage, but can give you sort of a full sense of the opportunities that exist right now. There is significant funding available.
Thank you. I mean, the big issue right now is that with the association doesn't want to sign the agreement that we put together, is we're sort of saying, you know, we will help where we can, or the town is responsible for some of this, but we don't want to sign on, or we might be liable for other construction. And they don't want to sign their document unless we agree to that. And that's the problem.
Yeah, understood. Our hope is that the funding packages we put together provide a significant enough carrot that homeowners associations will move forward, because it's not a question of if, the law exists, the rules exist. So it's only about when, and by having funding available, grant funding available to support that initial work, we're hopeful it helps people get to yes quicker.
All right.
I just wanted to, we can talk, let's talk after.
Okay. Do we have a final question? If not, I know Secretary Curley does have
I just have an update. Some of you may have noticed that we're missing our interim education secretary. She unfortunately got a flat tire on her way up and had to be towed. So if you were planning to follow her to some of the school visits, those are off. So our apologies on that front. But all of the other items that were on the media advisory that went out from the governor's office are still on. So would love to have you join us on any of those public events. And some of the folks might stick around. I know I'm going to be running off with Tim, right? So we've got to visit the forest, what's it?
Vermont Natural Forest.
Vermont Natural Forest Products. Would love to have anybody join along, and we're going to be making our way throughout the county for the day. So thank you for joining us.
Yep.
Not a question at all. Thank the administration for being here. I want to thank all the town officials for being here. And please, if you are unsure, there's one thing that we can take away from this meeting. If you're unsure of who to contact, your state reps, your state senators would be happy to connect you to the appropriate departments and agencies in state government, and we are here to help you. So please don't hesitate to reach out to any of us. Thanks so much, everyone.
Thank you. Representative Bingo.